Good evening. We begin tonight in China. Today, Mikhail Gorbachev became the first Soviet leader in 30 years to sit down with the leaders of China. Together, they agreed to normalize the relationship between the two largest communist countries in the world, to change things. But once again, that bit of history was overshadowed by students demanding change in China itself. And today, hundreds of thousands of Chinese from all walks of life have joined the students in the streets. ABC's John Lawrence is in Tiananmen Square.
There were as many as 500,000 people here tonight as the freedom and democracy movement gained strength. The 100-acre square in the center of Beijing was filled with ordinary citizens, onlookers, and supporters of the 1,000 college students who've been on a hunger strike since Saturday.
If the government delays decision and delays a substantial dialogue with the students in 1 or 2 days, there will be a genuine political crisis.
The political situation appears to be deteriorating in direct proportion to the medical conditions of these few students who are refusing food and water. They are members of the Academy of Art and Drama, but it is no act. Aside from having had no food for over 3 days, they have had no water for 24 hours, and doctors say their lives are in danger.
I think maybe they can persist for another 1 to 2 days, maybe. I'm not sure, you know.
The hunger strike is being taken seriously because of a 2,000-year tradition in China of idealists willing to die for their convictions by committing suicide. These students see themselves as part of that tradition.
We have no way except hunger strike. We will continue it until they answer us. If they didn't answer us forever, we will go on striking until the last one.
In addition to their demands for more democracy, the students also want the government to apologize for criticizing their movement. Toward that end, a top-ranking minister of the Communist Party visited the students today. He said he sympathized with their demands for reform, but pleaded for more time to negotiate. Thousands of workers joined the protest today, including scientists, coal miners, doctors, factory workers, airline employees, and the Chinese television news anchorwoman. Some students were visited by their teachers, whose admiration was evident. The number of students who have collapsed and required hospital treatment rose to more than 350. It is now the beginning of a new day, Wednesday in Beijing. And the top leadership of the Communist Party has just made a new proposal to the students. It offers to work out concrete steps to enhance democracy and law and oppose corruption. But first, the message says, the students should end their strike. A short time ago, student leaders announced that they would continue their protest. John Lawrence, ABC News, Tiananmen Square, Beijing.
Well, 500,000 demonstrators in the heart of Beijing while Mr. Gorbachev is there may well have been an embarrassment to the Chinese government, perhaps specifically to Deng Xiaoping, the leader. Some Chinese say he's too old, has been in power too long. Today, both his age and his experience showed when Deng sat down to talk with Gorbachev. ABC's Jim Laurie was there.
The handshake marked the end of a troubled era and a diplomatic victory for an aging leader. Deng Xiaoping had normalized relations with Moscow on his terms. Mikhail Gorbachev had agreed to conditions Deng set down 3 years ago for Soviet troops to pull back from Afghanistan and from along the Chinese border. And while there remained today major disagreement on how to achieve a political settlement in Cambodia, Deng raised his glass to normalization and called this an occasion to end the past and open up the future. As for Gorbachev, he showed at lunch he was ready to learn Chinese ways, especially, he said, in areas of trade and economic reform. And later, with China's Communist Party boss Zhao Ziyang, the two showed they were indeed comrades again, re-establishing Communist Party ties broken off some 25 years ago. But no matter how hard they tried, Gorbachev and his Chinese hosts could not escape the drama outside their meeting halls. Despite extra security, the growing democracy demonstrations forced one meeting to be moved away from Tiananmen Square. It did not, however, prevent Gorbachev from making one of his famous unscheduled motorcade stops to shake hands with people. But among them, there were no students. student activists have sought a meeting with the Soviet leader, but they no doubt would have been disappointed today by what he told Chinese leaders about demonstrations for democratic reform.
Mikhail Gorbachev said both sides have their hotheads who want to renovate socialism, but want to do it overnight.
Renovate socialism. On that, both sides agreed to do slowly. As Deng Xiaoping put it, sticking to the old rules would only lead to failure. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Beijing.
And so in China for another day, the Chinese students and the government try to figure out what it is that one another wants. When we come back, what's going on in Washington and trying to figure out what the Soviets want. And later in the broadcast, Panama is quiet, but some Americans